Now let's start with the Android part of this. We'll go to Eclipse and we'll say File, New Android Application Project. We'll give the name of this as PHP demo com.fitech.php demo. Give the SDK as Android 2.3.1. Uncheck on this. Next, next. Give the title of this as PHP demo and say finish. We'll be able to create the new project with the name PHP demo. Inside the PHP demo, we'll be first required to create our own layout. To create the layout, inside the activity main, we have to have all the records as well as a list view which can show all the records. We'll first remove this hello world from here. Right click and say change layout to linear layout. Due to lack of space, we'll just have the edit text. So I'll have the edit text for name, for the password, for the age, for the address, for the contact, for the other information. I will have a button to insert, to update, to delete, and I'll have a list view in the composite layouts to get all the items in the list view. So far so good. Let's first change the ID of this to txt name. We'll also require one more edit text for the ID. So I'll just create another edit text at the top. Give the ID of this to txt ID. The ID of this to txt name, that was set, that's fine. The ID of this to say txt password. The ID of the next control to txt age. The next control should be txt address. The next control should be txt contact, and the last control should be txt other information. Let's change the text on the buttons as well. We'll say edit ID of this first to btn insert, then ID of the second button to btn update, third button to btn delete, and let me just change the width of this to match parent, match parent, and match parent. The text on this as insert the record, and I'll say over here update the record, and to the last button I'll say delete the record. So far so good. I also have a list view at the bottom. To get the list view, you can simply change the size of the emulator to say 4.7 inches. It will give you the list view as well at the bottom. As you can see, we get the list view. I'll just right click on this, change the ID of this to LST students, and let me change the hint text on each of the controls. Edit hint, enter ID, edit hint, enter name. Over here we had enter password, then we had over here enter age. Over here the ID was address, so I'll say enter address. Give over here enter contact, and the last we'll give enter other information. Now to make the password box as a password, you have to right click on it and say other properties. Over here we have to say all by name, and then we have to say input type, or input type to be text password. This will make sure that this is a password field, and whatever you type inside this will be a password. As we are accessing the PHP part, so in the manifest file we have to add the internet permissions. So we'll go to permissions and say add. With the user's permission, we'll add the internet permission over here. You can see we have the internet, and if you will not do this, if you will try to access the PHP code without doing this, then you will be getting a forced close in the application. Let's now write the code of this. We'll go to the PHP main activity. We'll remove the on options menu creation and we'll get the reference of all the controls. So let's do that. I'll say final edit text txt id equals to edit text find view by id r.id.txt id. Just copy this complete thing for the name, password, contact, age, address, other information. So I'll say id. After id we'll have name, we'll have password, you'll have age, you'll have contact, you'll have address, and you'll have other information. In the name we have to say r.id.txt name. Over here we have to say r.id.txt password. Here we have to say r.id.txt age. Here we have to say txt contact, txt address, and txt other information. We also have the button, so I'll say final button btn insert equals to button find view by id r.id.btn insert. Then we have the second button and third button. We'll say btn update and btn delete. We can have over here btn update and btn delete. We also have a list view, so I'll say final list view lst students equals to list view find view by id r.id.lst students. Then we'll have to have a function that will be filling the list view. So let me give a function called as select all records. We'll pass the list view to it. And let's create that function first. So we'll have public void select all records and we'll pass a list view, say lst. So whatever list view you pass inside the select all records will fill the list view with the records from the database. I hope that's fine with us. Then let's say go to step 2 and write the on clicks. For that I'll say btn insert dot set on click listener new on click listener. Just import that on click listener from here. With the on click listener we have to create the PHP query. To create the PHP query you have to first have a string over here. So I'll have string URL. Now my PHP codes are hosted at http://10.0.2.2:85. In your case, this colon 85 will not come because in your case, most of the PCs will have the PHP MySQL hosted at port 80. But for the PCs where it is not at port 80, you have to change it to port 85. And after you change it to port 85, you can access it by saying 10.0.2.2, that is your local host, colon 85. Then we'll have slash. Inside the colon 85, we have the practice folder, the MySQL demo folder. So we have to say slash practice slash MySQL demo slash. Then we have to give the name of the file wherein we want to add this thing up. So we will say insert.php and we have to pass all the arguments that is required by insert.php. So insert.php requires the name, the password, the age, the contact, the address, and the other information. So what you can do over here is you can have a question mark and then you can say URL equals to URL plus. I'll have txt name equals to, the name is present inside txt name dot get text dot toString. Then I'll just copy this thing up for the password, age, address, contact, and other information. So I will say over here txt password. I'll have over here txt password. Then I'll have txt age. Have a txt age over here. Then we'll have txt address. We'll have txt address over here. We'll have txt contact as well over here. I'll say txt other information, txt other information dot get text. You have to make sure that whatever information that you pass inside this must match the information that you're passing over here. So if you're passing txt name, that should match with txt name. If you're passing txt password, that should match with txt password. Txt age should match with txt age. Txt contact or address should match with txt address. Txt contact must match with txt contact, and txt other information must match with txt other information. One thing that you have to do over here is, once you give txt name equals to the name, then you have to have a and sign. This indicates that you have a second variable passed, then an and sign for the third variable, fourth variable, fifth variable, and sixth variable. If you will not do this, PHP will indicate that the txt name has the complete value. That is, it has the txt name.getText, txt password, and everything. To remove that confusion, what you can do is you can have txt name equals to the name and indicates it is a new variable. With the and part, you can just pass in the name of the second variable along with its value. This will actually create the insert query but will not execute the query. So to execute the query, you should have the execute query method where you can pass the URL. So we'll just have a stub for that. We'll say public void execute query. I'll give a string URL over here. I'll just fill, or will you have to write this method to execute the query or to execute the URL and display its output. So far so good. We'll now have the handler for the update button. So just copy for insert and make it update. And in the update, we also have to get the ID. So I'll have URL equals to URL dot txt ID. You have to make sure that you have passed txt ID like this. So you have to pass txt ID like that only. Then you'll have txt ID dot get text dot toString, and you have to give the file name over here as update dot php. It's pretty simple though. You have to just give the file name and you have to give everything else. Most of the people will make a mistake over here by not adding an and sign. You have to add the and sign. The and sign indicates the txt ID and txt name are two separate variables. Just copy the update part and have the delete part over here. In the delete part, you don't require the name, password, other information, etc. Just require the ID, and the name of the file has to be delete.php. After every insert, update, and delete, we want the list view to be filled again. So we'll call the select records function after each of the execute query functions, so that whatever changes we have made on the database must be fetched back and shown to us inside the list view. Now, whenever someone clicks on the list view, so we have to write the set on item click listener, new on item click listener. Let me import the item click listener over here, and let me add the methods that they want. Over here, all the records have been separated by a EUR character, but all the fields of the records have been separated by a comma character. So we'll first get the text view from this. Txt equals to text view arg1, because the arg1 is a view. We have to convert this view into a text view. Once we get that, we'll get the string out of it. So we'll say txt dot get text dot toString. Once we get the string, we have to split this with the help of a comma character. So we'll say string record equals to str.split. We'll split that by a comma character. Whatever record we get, we'll get all the fields, that is the ID, the name, the age, the address, etc. We have to just fill in those fields inside the form. So we'll say txt ID dot set text record of 0. Why record of 0? Because if you will see in the select all file, the first record or the first field that you're passing is the ID. So you have to give the first field as the ID. You will say txt name dot set text as record of 1. Then you'll have the next part as txt password dot set text as record of 2. Similarly, the next part is age, so you will give txt age dot set text record of 3. Then we'll have txt contact dot set text record of 4. I hope the next was the contact only. That's fine. Then we have next as address and the other information. So I'll say txt address dot set text record of 5 and txt other information dot set text record of 6. This will set the complete record from the database into the actual file. Once we are done with that, we have to fill the select all records function. In select all records, we'll first have a try catch block in case something goes wrong. We don't want the application to close. A try catch is very required. If you will not have the try catch, in case anything goes wrong with your complete PHP code, the Android code will hang. So that should not happen. That is why you have a try catch over here. In the URL part, we'll be having http://10.0.2.2/85/practice/mysql demo/ the select all.php file will give me the output. So I'll just select underscore all.php. Then we'll have to have the HTTP client. I'll say HTTP underscore client equals to new default HTTP client. As you can see, it has default HTTP client. That's fine. Then we'll have HTTP request. I'll say HTTP request equals to new. We had HTTP get, I suppose, equals to HTTP get equals to new HTTP get. The get requires a URL, so I'll just give the URL as URL over here. Then we'll have HTTP response. I'll get it inside HTTP response equals to HTTP get dot execute. We have to say HTTP dot execute, HTTP client dot execute. It will execute the request. So I'll just give the request as HTTP get request. So it will execute this get request on the client, and whatever response we get, we'll get in the HTTP response. Then we'll get HTTP entity. Let me give HTTP entity to this equals to HTTP response dot get entity. Then we'll have buffered reader br equals to new buffered reader. I'll say HTTP entity dot get content. It will get the content out of the complete response. Once we get the content, we have to first check out that we have to make it an input stream reader, because it should read a input stream, and that stream is given by the HTTP entity dot get content. Once we get the buffered reader, we have to simply say string result equals to br dot read line. It will give me the complete line out of the output. Once we get the line, then we have to first split the line with the help of the EOR character. So as a string results equals to result, this will be an array. This will be result dot split with the help of the EOR character. Once we get all the results, then we can say lst dot set adapter new array adapter of type string. The context should be get application context, or we can even write main activity dot this, both will do fine. The second argument is the resource ID, so I'll give it android dot r dot layout dot simple list item 1. Then we'll give the results over here so that we get the output of it. So far so good. This will actually give all the results from the select all.php file into our result. We'll split that with the help of the EOR character, and those results will go inside the list view. In the execute query method, we have to follow all the steps similar to this. So we'll just have a try catch. The URL is not required, and whatever result we get inside the complete code, we have to just say toast.makeText main activity.this. The text should be the result. We'll say toast.lengthlong.show. As you can see, whatever functionality we have given inside the select all records, the same functionality is over here. Whatever URL we pass over here, that URL should go directly to the HTTP GET request. We'll get the response out of it. We'll have the entity. We'll have the buffered reader that will read all the lines. Then we will just toast that thing at the output. This completes the Android PHP application. Let's run this thing on the device and see how do we get the output of it. I wanted to run on the Android emulator. Say OK. The console. So far so good. Okay. Now what I can do is I can simply enter a name over here. Let the name be Leo. The password be LEO. As you can see, it gave me the proper password tag. Give the age as 24, address as Hingna. Click on back. The contact information to be say 987654321. That's fine. Let me give the other information as none. If I will say insert the record, it will go to the PHP part and it will try to insert the record. Because of the lack of space on the emulator, you are not able to see the list view. If I will go to the MySQL database, I'll be able to see that Leo has been properly inserted from the Android part into the PHP code or into MySQL database. If I will give the other name, say Leo Nardo, let me give the age of this as 87. Give the address of this as Pune. Let me give the other information as same. Just say insert the record. If I will again go to browse, it will show that it has actually inserted the record for the Leonardo person.